Hello all, Nice Tail here. Hope you're having a good day today. And I'm bringing you a knife review, and my word, today's knife reviews have not gone well. I deleted a couple, they're just all over the place. So I'm going to see if we can finish strong. You're going to see them, because I'm going to post them, because I'm going to do that. But, I'll get something presentable out of them, but, why not? It's fun, right? Who cares? We're not taking things too serious. What are we looking at? We're looking at the We Nefaris. This was a limited edition and a very, very, in my opinion, attractive looking knife. That we will jump into the specs and start off there, as always, with the reviews. You have 3 3/8 to the front of this, but you could easily call this 3.5 inches of blade if you wanted to. 8 1/4 overall. I'm measuring from tip to tip on the handle, and we're just a hair over 4 3/4. Let us make a comparison here to its siblings, because We is a company that is, in fact, the premium division of Civivi, and, well, you got 7 Cut as the super budget, Civivi as the middle kind of ground, mostly budget, and We as the premium line. I don't know which is the original, probably We, but it is what it is. As you can see, the Nefaris does, in fact, dwarf both of its siblings, which I suppose being the premium, that's about right, right? Not by a ton, but it is definitely bigger. It is still what I would consider a full-size knife, not a large knife, but it is larger than just, say, your very middle of the ground conspirator here. What it is not, well, before I get there, it is a bit taller than the conspirator. It most definitely, let's see if I can hold it up without completely working this up. As you can see, that some of the handle sort of still sticks out from behind there. Though the flipper tab to the top of the blade looks to be about the same. I actually thought it would be a little bit shorter, but it looks very close. So flipper tab is approximate height. It's just this thing is, more of this knife is taller in relation to the flipper than on the conspirator. It is not, however, very thick. It's definitely thinner than the conspirator. This is a deceptively thin knife. I did not know that when I was getting this knife. I was actually quite surprised when I got this knife in hand and saw that it was as thin as it is. Let's move on to the calipers first, since we're talking about that. This knife is 447 thousandths, so under half an inch. That is slightly thinner than a Civivi Elementum. Much thinner than the conspirator at over half an inch, 524 thousandths. This thing is really thin. Arguably, I will make an argument for being potentially a little too thin in the handle, for my taste. But that's mostly part of the design thing that we'll talk about later. 122 thousandths on the blade stock. That is appropriately thin, and as most Wii's are, they don't typically go too much higher on most blades than that. Something else that is also thin is this ridiculous behind the edge, at apparently around 11 to 12 thousandths behind the edge. It gets very thin, and it stays pretty darn thin for quite a while. This is a very slow, it's a reasonably tall blade, but it really is aggressively ground. If there's one thing about this blade you cannot complain about, it is that it is a slicer. It is a cutting beast. You can actually get to the tip. I'm getting ahead of myself, but you can actually get to the tip, and the blade is great. I didn't mention that this is a frame lock in 20 CV, and this is a numbered limited edition. There were a couple of variants of this. Some of them are still available. And it's on bearings. 4.16 ounces. Not quite an ounce an inch, but pretty darn close, which, for a decent-sized knife at over I guess right around that 3.5-inch blade at full titanium frame lock, that's pretty light. It is milled extensively inside, which you can kind of see. There you go. It's a light knife. Good balance, light knife. Quick hardware check. T8 pivot, T8 body, and pocket clip screws. We're T8s all around. In fact, I think even the lock bar insert is a T8. They're not the deepest tooled, I will admit that, but they are T8s. I believe we are done with... you know what? No, we're not. I always forget these. The final comparison in handle length, the AA batteries. Your primary back rear grip is not quite the length of the AA batteries, but I mean, you have the choil and everything, so you've got more than enough room. So you're probably going to find a position. I mean, I can get my hands all the way back on this thing in the back, so without even going into choil. All right. So let's start with blade real fast. You got a hand rub satin on this particular variant. They come in a bunch. There was some coated blades. There's a Damasteel one that's much more expensive, like most We Damasteel ones. Probably not worth it. You have some inlay ones, but the inlay is only on one side. I never liked that, so I didn't go that route. But you have some coated blades and all different kinds of things. There was a number of different variants, so I honestly don't know if there was 155 of each variant, because if you can actually look, it says 84 out of 155, I believe that is. I don't know if there was 155 of each variant. Probably, but that's still not that many, right? And, did they do a full one of those gray polished ones? They may have done a run of that, but beyond that, they haven't come back to this knife at all. So I don't know if it's gone and you just have to deal with what you got out there or what, but it is what it is. So we got horizontal satin, hand satin, and vertical satin on the flats. Nice swedge, clip point, very aggressive, long clip point, but like I said before, you can get to that tip reasonably easily. Some belly, very nice blade shape, very attractive, very aggressive looking, right? The jimping is good. Like, this is functional jimping. The plunge grind is here. I mean, they could have given you more, but that's still a lot of life. That's still more than your money's worth of life by far. That's as much as you're ever going to want. And the good thing about that is, even beyond that, is this is a flipper, even though it's got such a small flipper, which means the stop pin is nowhere near any part of the edge. So, I mean, technically, you can make this a zigzag if you really wanted to cut into there. Doesn't matter. You could cut all the way in and make it just hanging on by a thread. It'd be interesting, but you could do it. From there, we move on to the flipper, which this flipper is really, really well designed. It's very high above the pivot, and it's in front of the pivot, which gives you a ton of leverage, which makes the flip, it wants to go, right? You can definitely almost fail it if you give it really just a little bit, but you have to kind of go maybe a little bit far forward and cheat to just break it over the edge. But it flies out, and it really gives you a good kick for its deployment. The flipper is good, and the aperture, fuller, whatever, it's not really a fuller, it's an opening hole, it's an aperture, I guess, in the blade also hits at a very good angle for the reverse flick. I'll be honest with you, I've never tried the thumb flick. Works just fine. That was the first one ever, so I'm going to call that a win. From there, we move on to the... Oh, and there's absolutely no branding on the blade other than those tiny microscopic little things that We does. This is very traditional for We. They don't put a lot of stuff on their blades, which I love. Any division of We. Here's the Civivi. Nothing. Or if it is there, it's tiny. I can appreciate that, and I really do think that separates them, and I like that a lot more. This is let's be honest, very clean. It's also in 20CV, which, yes, we is usually, 59 to 61, though that might be them being a little bit conservative from what I've heard. They do average more around 60 or higher. Like 60.5 is, I've heard a number of them come in when they've tested at that. Not too many of them seem to be coming in much under 60. But, of course, that's just a small sample size, and I'm not doing a mass batch of testing or anything like that. Definitely too soft for 20CV. I would like to see it. I would like it to be harder. 20CV is super steel that has good corrosion and edge retention and decent, okay, kind of so-so toughness, but it really, really shines when it's up at higher hardness levels. If they could get this thing to 61 to 63 with a 63 it's like 62 or 63 more often than not, with a good heat treatment, it would perform like an absolute monster. But you're still going to get good performance out of this. Still much better than your average budget steel. And the corrosion resistance is pretty good, darn good too. And We knows how to emphasize the effectiveness of their blade steel because they do thin grinds, sharp edges, good geometry all around. Even if this is a bit softer than it should, it's still going to perform well because it's a dang scalpel, right? Moving on from the blade, finally, we've got a pivot collar and some very nice little minute speed holes, kind of, I guess you could call them, on both sides, which I like the design elements carried through, and they're anodized quite attractively. And they're nice little pops of color against this. Some people don't like it, I've heard, but I really like this brushed finish that they do. I've been wanting to get a We Thug XL, the large version of the Thug, that has the same finish on it, but they don't seem to ever come back in stock. I've been trying to search one down, but man, it's been eluding me. But I really like this brushed finish. And while I haven't put this thing through its paces in the sense of a daily user, it has been in and out of the pocket a number of times. And so far, knock on wood, hopefully it stays that way, this brush finish has held up pretty well. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case on all of them. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to be the case long term. I mean, I've had the knife for a long time, but I haven't, used it long term. But right now, it's good. You've got all right lock bar axis, but they cut it. I mean, definitely does stand out proud. You're not quite able to go in from the side. You have to angle it just a tiny bit off to really get in there comfortably and good. But they did give you some room and some texture. And partially, that's the reason that you can't go completely from the side, even though it doesn't seem like there's a lot of knockback on there. I think you probably could if the knife was a little bit thicker. Moving on from there, well, of course, also, along with the brushed finish, we've got some very nice texturing. These are milling lines and stuff in the knife. Which brings us to the pocket clip, which is a very, very standard but milled nice pocket clip that really fits the knife. They put the We logo there instead of on the pivot, which is interesting. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. Pocket clip works good. Decent retention. It's a little stiff, but it's not bad. We've also got a fun backspacer that has a lanyard post hidden in it. That is also anodized. Which I can always appreciate when the hardware and stuff like that is, anodized. I mean, the stop pin, that's forgivable. Okay, you have it slamming into things and stuff like that. You don't necessarily have to coat that. But if you're going to anodize and do something or coat something with anything, do it throughout. Make it consistent, right? Very snappy. Not drop shut, but very smooth. It did break in a little bit. It didn't come this way. It was a little bit tighter on the way it came, but it's broken into a shake shot that is very smooth and silky feeling. Now, the final thing that I want, well, I guess not the final thing. The final thing will be price points, but one of the last things I want to talk about is ergos. And as much as I love this knife, I really do. This is a cool knife. The ergos were a disappointment. All right? This is not uncomfortable. This is, in fact, very comfortable. The ergos back here are fine. Perfectly fine. The problem is you're really far away from the blade. And it feels a little bit weird. Like, you can tell that you're at a weird kind of position. It works, and I'm fine with it. In fact, I mean, a lot of times you use a blade like this, and there's no problem with it in this position, or even this position. In fact, it's really good for this position. Pinch grip and stuff like that, you can get away with all that. The problem starts lying in here. And that's because of how wide this is. For me, this is a subjective part. While it's not uncomfortable, I do feel like my fingers being splayed a little bit, and it doesn't feel like the kind of grip that I necessarily 100% want to be in. I mean, you look at a Spyderco, and they have a little bit of that, but it gets down to a point at the highest point, and then it tapers down. So your fingers are pretty darn close, right? You can really get them up into position and sort of move them around and adjust them. You're forced into this on this one. I mean, you can go over a little bit, and that's typically what I do. I go back into the back end of the choil and up a little bit onto that, and it's comfortable. You can definitely make it work, but you're still splayed out a little bit. Now, this is not bad. It's just not quite what I was expecting it to feel like. And I think that is exacerbated by, yes, big words, exacerbated by the thinness of the handle, right? This is real thin in the hand. If there was a little more thickness there to give us just a little bit more room, even to just sit on the edge here, you might have been able to get away with it a little bit better. But because it's thin, and because you have a wide gap here, I don't know if this is going to be the perfect knife for everybody's hands. It feels a little off for me, but it is still comfortable. So I've gotten around it. It's just, I wouldn't necessarily want to be like all day up. Like, it's not particularly comfortable in the choke up here because you got this big wide thing in your hands, right? This, not the best position in the world. You can make it work if you sort of orient it back like this. Okay, fine, I'm good. But it just takes some slight orientation that you wouldn't have expected. Or maybe you would if you saw this and said, oh, that's not that great. It's like the EMP EDC Nimble had that area. And I had one and I just found myself saying, you know what? I mean, that knife it wasn't uncomfortable, but it was even a little bit worse than this one. And I got rid of that knife because it just was not hitting me right. Now I have an EDC EMP Relative, which I've done a review on. That knife doesn't have that issue. That knife got rid of that choil. It's very tight. And it's so comfortable. I love that knife. You know what? I haven't done a review on it. I have the review in the wings. It's waiting, so you can't even check it out. That'll come up soon. But that's the only thing that I think is important to note. The combination of the slimness and the position it puts your hand in for this could potentially be a little bit awkward feeling until you get used to it, really. Other than that, this is a killer knife and a killer design, and these things came in at, I want to say, the non-inlay ones I think come in around $320, and yeah, they feel a little high, but they definitely feel like a $300 knife, right? I could see $290, $300 for them. It's a little bit higher than I want because it's just a simple frame lock, but it definitely has more to it. It's definitely got that little bit of extra and a little bit of refinement. Not even the new We extras that they have where they're just like drop shut craziness, but this is definitely something a little bit special. And it's a much more limited edition, which, of course, everybody's going to charge more for that. Oh, it's also centered and there's no play. It didn't come quite centered. I did adjust it a tiny bit, but it centered up, so no big deal. The inlay variants, I think, come closer to 350, which, I mean, it makes sense. You've milled out something and then you've put carbon fiber, or there's like lightning anode titanium and something like that. It makes sense. And if you don't mind the half and half design, which I don't like, I think there are still some of them around, actually, floating around in the inlay ones. Nebula fat carbon, a plasma anode inlay, which is a titanium, which will be heavier probably than even this one, because the milling might be counteracted by the slab of titanium. And then, of course, there's the Damasteel, which was like 800... Was it 600 some 80, or was it 800 something dollars? It's way too expensive for what it is. So, even though We does a really, really good job on their Damasteel, and I have a review coming up that I want to point out something that I don't think a lot of people think about their Damasteel, because there is something about it. But I'll leave that for that video. On this one, this is a really cool knife, and I'm glad I have it. And I really, really like it. And it's not something that, if you've been thinking about it, you should necessarily shy away from. Nice, tight lock bar cutout. It's just something that you're going to have to realize you should have a little bit of extra information going into it, right? Thinness, slightly taller handle. Maybe it works for your hand, maybe it doesn't. But I still love it. So, hopefully, someone will see this, and this will give them some bit of information that they can use. Or just enjoy. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe if you want. And I will see you in the next one.